Shabbat Shalom, scattered Israel. This is the Unexpected Cosmology, and my name is Noel Joshua Hadley. And tonight we will be, well, let's just say that tonight is not your father's Bible study. This is some cutting edge stuff. We're going to be jumping into the Paleo Hebrew. The Paleo Hebrew is totally cutting edge, and a quick story on this. It was probably about 2 years ago that Pamela was doing some translations of the Paleo Hebrew, and she was passing it around on this Discord here at the Unexpected Cosmology. And I read one of them, and I don't know how many she had written at that point, but I read one of them. I'm like, Pamela, this is really good. And what are you planning to do with this? And I asked her, I said, can we post these as articles on the Unexpected Cosmology? And she agreed to it. We started putting them up there. I don't know how many we put up there, 30 something, not really sure. They're still up there. And as she's putting them up, I'm like, Pamela, we got to turn this into a book or something. We got to get this out there because people need to know about the Paleo Hebrew and these magnificent translations you're doing. So here we are at Presence, and this is perfect timing because for those of you in the TUC book club, they should have been delivered to you just this last week. My understanding is that some of you listening right now have a copy in front of you on your lap, and you could read along from there. For the rest of you, we do have a PDF copy in here that you can read from personally. So without further ado, here's Pamela. Shabbat Shalom, Pamela. Welcome tonight.
Thank you, Noel. Thank you, everyone who is here with us tonight. Before I get started, I sort of want to give a little bit of a preface or introduction. I just wanted to kind of be transparent and make you aware of a few things. The first is that I did not grow up speaking any kind of Hebrew. Of course, I'm from Alabama, and probably people who would postulate that I have yet to speak English. But I do not have a degree in Hebrew. I have a degree in music. And so the information that I'm going to share with you it is things that I have discovered with research and with the Ruach. I really owe a lot to them because a lot of times she would point me in the direction, and she'd say this, and then I'd start digging, and I'd find, oh yeah, that's what it's saying. So I owe the Ruach, you know, the credit for a lot of this. Now it started not long after I came to Torah. I grew up in a Protestant church, and not long after I came to Torah, which is the summer of 2017, I started really, delving into scripture because I realized that if the Torah is true and applicable for our times, I needed to know. I needed to know the requirements, and it's just, I suppose I had to find out for myself. Because you have so many different voices out there saying, this is what that means, this is what that means. Oh no, this is what it means. So I started delving into it. And then the Psalms in particular, I wanted to set them to music. I'm a musician. I write music, that's what I do. I arrange music, that's what I do. So I wanted to set them to music. And I was looking at the Hebrew, and I had this moment. It was like an epiphany. I was looking at Psalms 56, and I had struggled in the modern Hebrew. And in that moment, as I was looking at Psalms 56, it clicked, and I could see the rhythm of the words. I could see what David was trying to say, and it was for me, it was a profound moment. And for a long time, I felt like I was working in a vacuum. I was doing it for myself. And you can, when you're doing that sort of thing, you can get discouraged. So I I I shared a few, and as Noel said, he and others, they gave me these encouraging words. And so as I was learning about the paleo, learning about the original text, it became this journey, and I started realizing uh, their lives. I could see their lives. I could see their thought process. I could see um, just the humor of their everyday life. And so, what we have here now tonight, it's not a mechanical translation. It is not a mechanical translation because we have those, and it's not a one word for one word exchange from Hebrew to English because, in my opinion, that just it's just not possible. It's just not possible to do justice to the text by trying to fit one English word into a Hebrew word because the English is just it's just inadequate. And so this is the possibilities. It is the possibilities in the text. It's the meanings, not just the meanings. It's the pictures that you're seeing because the paleo is a pictographic type language. And so I have tried in this. I have tried to convey the Hebrew thought, and as I was doing it. Now, just to give you a little bit of background about the paleo, in the scripture, it's given two names. It's given the name Kathu, which means writing, and David used uh, this word, and Ezra used Yahweh Dayath, which means he will breathe information. And sometimes, mostly, it's usually translated as the Jewish language or the language of the Jews, but that's not what it's actually saying. It's saying that it's Yah is breathing this. So so he sent so he has sent messengers. Messengers. When he was showing David the pattern of the temple, he sent it to him in writing in the Kasud. And when Daniel, that scene in Daniel where the writing, the fingers appeared on the wall. That's the paleo. He was writing in the wall in paleo, and the Babylonian king sees it. He literally, his knees start knocking together, and Daniel just simply reads it. He doesn't go and pray over it to find out the meaning, like sometimes Joseph did. He just simply read it because that was the language of the Hebrew people. Now, some of the rules of Hebrew of the Paleo, you have, like the modern Israeli Hebrew, you read from right to left. It is pictographic. Each letter has a meaning of its own. And what makes it so easy to learn is because our brains process pictures so much faster. Now, the Paleo is not modern. It is not modern Israeli Hebrew. These are two separate languages. I made a mistake in the beginning because I was trying to fit the Paleo on top of the modern. It just doesn't work. It's not Aramaic. It's not Syriac. These are separate languages. A lot of these languages have come out of the Paleo, but they are not Paleo. There are no vowel points. That happens in modern. This was an interpolation. That means it was added. These nakud were added, and there is no capitalization. There are no silent letters. The consonants are pronounced the same every time. That means that they don't change. Say, for instance, if you put a little dot or it doesn't have a dot, the B changes to a V sound. That's not the way it is. They don't change shape, and there are vowel sounds. There are 5 vowel sounds, and those are the Alf, the Yod or Yod, the Hey, the Ua, which is usually called the Vav, and Ion. So there are 5, at least 5 vowel sounds in the Kasu, the Yahuwah Dayath. Now, a lot of people may cling to the modern. I'm not trying to disparage it. I'm just trying to help people recognize it's a separate language. It is the language of the Israeli people today. But as you can see in this PDF, I got this from Rebecca, and I thank her for this. That these original Hebrew letters, the Paleo, it was changed. They rewrote the Torah in the Assyrian characters. These are Babylonian letters, and in another instance, if you'll notice, this excerpt from the Legend of the Jews, Volume 4, I've skipped over. In the realization of his second hope, the spread of the Torah, Ezra was so zealous and efficient that it was justly said of him, if Moses had not anticipated him, Ezra would have received the Torah. In a sense, he was indeed a second Moses. The Torah had fallen into neglect and oblivion in his day, and he restored and reestablished it in the minds of his people. It is due to him chiefly that it was divided into portions to be read annually, Sabbath after Sabbath, in the synagogue, and it was likewise who originated the idea of rewriting the Pentateuch in Assyrian characters. To further his purpose more, he ordered additional schools for children to be established everywhere, though the old ones sufficed to satisfy the demand. He thought the rivalry between the old and the new institutions would redound to the benefit of the pupils. So you can see that modern Hebrew was not the language used in the writing of the majority of the Old Testament or the Psalms. It was the Paleo. And Paleo, from the evidence that I have found, it went up to at least 67 AD, 100 AD. So it was still in use. In fact, the Pharisees of Yeshua's day, they were saying of him, where did he get this knowledge? No one has taught him the letters. And so they're like saying, how does he know this, the Paleo? How does he know the letters? And so in Proverbs, it says, we 25 and Proverbs 25:2, it says, it is the glory of Al-Hayam to conceal a thing. It is the honor of kings to search out a matter. Now that word there, it is actually debar, which is word. It is the glory of Al-Hayam to conceal a word. It is the honor of kings to search out a debar. And so that's a lot of what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to search out a word. We're going to search out many words. And I hope that you are as blessed in this reading and this commentary as I was in my discovery of it. And I just have to say that I am surprised every day. I am surprised every day at what I find. So with that being said, Noel?
Well, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And as you can see here, if you're looking on page 7 of the document, we see the Psalm 1 here in the Paleo Hebrew. Pamela was kind enough to put these on top of each of her psalms, so you You could source this for yourself, and you could see that these are word pictures that what she draws out of here are the many possibilities. So starting with Psalm 1. Happy the man who makes no plans, who charts no voyage according to the advice or counsel of the condemned and wicked, the fallen ones. Ashar, maybe Pamela can correct me on this, but Asharaya Hayash. Happy the man who does not arise to dwell, to be employed, to transverse a road, to take a journey. He is in no wise a passenger of those accounted as criminals, the transgressors of Torah. Asharaya Ha'ayash. Happy the man who does not settle, who does not marry, who does not continue in company, does not make his dwelling or place of sojourning with the teachers of mockery, the ambassadors of scorn. The Barak and happy has pleasure in and favors the Torah of Yahuwah. Yahuwah. I am so sorry for for just like
Yahawaha.
thank you. The self-existing one in the Torah, he speaks, he imagines, he studies and ponders, both during the day season and when darkness of adversary twists from the light. The Barak and happy one is a firm tree. He shall be transplanted, rooted, and secure by life-giving streams, where shall be gathered together a flourishing watercourse. In due time, a fruitful reward shall be his. His foliage will not wither or fade. No dishonor or blight shall strike. His labors, his industry, his office of governance, his service and sacrifice shall break forth into profit and prosperity. The condemned shall be winnowed like chaff. With violent exaltation, the Ruach shall drive them away. The morally wrong shall not rise when the verdict of judicial ruling comes. The transgressors of the Torah shall not congregate with the Saraya Kuyam. The self-existing one, Yahuwah, ascertains, acknowledges, advises, and through careful observation cares for and instructs the course of life or the mode of action of the Sada Kuyam. The morally wrong, the transgressors of Torah, with their customs and mode of action, shall perish with no chance of escape. So Pamela has allowed me to read this on my best behavior, so hopefully she doesn't pull me off stage. But back to you, Pamela. Thank you for letting me read that.
Thank you, Noel. I still stumble over the pronunciation, so it's a work in progress for me. So if I make mistakes, I hope you all will grant me grace too. Now, if you notice, it's just the Hebrew Paleo Hebrew is beautiful. It is so descriptive. You've got this. It actually is giving you a picture of what's happening in the text, and I mean, if you looked at the back of the Psalms from the Paleo, it says the Baruch and happy one is a firm tree. So you've got this contrast. Now they like to do this a lot. They like to contrast things. They like to contrast those who follow Yah, who follow the way of Yah, and those who do not. Now, the first picture we have, the first words, I just love this. It's actually I don't know if I said this in the beginning, but Hebrew, the Paleo Hebrew is a root-oriented system. That means every word has a two-symbol parent root. If you can find that parent root, then you know the underlying meaning of that word. Now, in the case of the first three words in this psalm, let me see if I can get this up here. Yeah, hopefully this will post for us. Okay. If it doesn't show, yes, there it is. All right, so if you notice, it's Asharia, Ashari, Asharaya, Hi Ayash. And of course, I left out the Ashar at the end. What this is saying, each one of these, I want you to look and you see those first two symbols on the right hand side, the Aleph and the Shin or the Shan, the Aleph and the Shan, those two symbols together make the word Ash, which is fire. And that is the root word of all three of those words. And it says happy, happy the man, which, and you could, it's actually happy again. But my happy, the man, happy is actually what it's saying right there. So this man is actually, and I want you to look at the second word, the one in the center. You've got the hey, the aleph, the yod, and the shin. Now you take the fire, the word fire, ash, aleph, shin. You drop the yod in, which represents work. So man is a work of fire. And so this is, happiness is a fire inside the person. You see that resh, which is the third symbol from the right, that is the resh, and that represents a person, or it could be chief. So it is the chief fire and the work of man. Man is a work of fire, and happy again. So I think if this is, if happiness is the chief fire, or the first fire, maybe that was the first emotion that humanity had, was happiness. And this is not the type of happy, it's not that, oh, I'm so glad, oh, that makes me feel good. No, it's the kind of happy in which this fire rises up inside of you. I'm going to kind of give you an example from my own life. It's the happy that I experienced when my daughter, just this last Thursday, she was safely delivered of her baby. She had preeclampsia, and it was just, we almost lost her with her first baby, and because of preeclampsia. And so when she was safely delivered of the baby, it was that feeling, that feeling that rises up in you, that joy that rises up. You might have experienced it, like if you asked a young lady to marry you, you felt that feeling. It's that rising fire within you. So you could see that this is a kind of happy that it's not, oh, I feel glad, kind of thing. It's an intense emotion, an intense happiness. And in this case, happy the man who makes no plans, who charts no voyage, according to the advice or counsel of the condemned and wicked, the fallen ones. Now, if you notice, we have 1, 2, 3 stanzas. All of that comes from just a few words. Just a few words. And the word is walk. It comes from the word walk or journey. And so these are all ways that we can walk with someone else. I think that it says, how can two walk together unless they agree? And we're told in the New Testament, don't be unequally yoked with another. And so you're not journeying with anyone. You're not walking. And it's making a journey with this person. It's like your companions. You're not making plans. You're not voyaging with this person. You're not dwelling with this person. You're not employed by this person. You're not traveling on a road or making a journey. You're not even a passenger with this person. You don't settle down with them. You don't marry them. There was also, I didn't put this in there, but you don't have intercourse with that person. Who does not continue, you do not continue in their company with these teachers of mockery, ambassadors of scorn, these people who transgressed the Torah. And instead of, usually they put in sinners or wicked, but the word is actually condemned. They're already condemned by not following to the Torah. These scornful they're already condemned. And so these have transgressed Torah. Now, the Baruch and Happy has pleasure in and favors the Torah of Yahweh. Now, it's actually says in the Torah. That word is there. And in the Torah, he speaks, he imagines, he studies, he ponders. All this comes from the word for meditate. He meditates upon the Torah. And this is not just a casual sort of thing. It's not just I'm reading it. It's like it actually, the word comes from it means to murmur, it's like you're growling under your breath. It's like, have you ever read something to you're reading something, but you don't even realize that you're muttering the words under your breath. And so they're meditating, they're sighing over it. It's profound. And so he's imagining, and he does it during the day, and he does it, during the darkness. Now, one of my favorite portions is right here. The Baruch and Happy one is a firm tree. He shall be transplanted, rooted and secure by life-giving streams. It yields its, if you notice, it's a fruitful reward shall be his. His foliage will not wither or fade. No dishonor or blight shall strike him. His labors, his industry, his office of governance, his service and sacrifice shall break forth unto profit and prosperity. And it's a picture of, it's a beautiful picture. And it's just, I thought that, Noel's design of the cover was so so fitting. And if you ever saw his picture that he posted to go with this psalm on the Psalm project on the unexpected cosmology, it's so fitting. This picture of a beautiful flourishing tree. And this is not the only time that humans are taught to, or that there's used this analogy or metaphor for human being a tree. When Yeshua healed the blind man, he said, how's your eyes doing? He says, I see men as trees walking. And so you find it in the Old Testament, you find it in the New, and human, like a firm tree. And his labors, his industry, if you are struggling for the kingdom right now, if you're struggling for the kingdom right now, there will be a payday someday. There will be a payday. It says so right here. And no dishonor or blight will strike. And so the work that you're doing for him, no dishonor. There will be no dishonor or blight strike it. And now we have this contrast. The condemned, they're not so. It's not going to be the same for them. These who are condemned, already condemned, they're already condemned. This word is rasha, and sometimes used as ungodly, wicked, but it's someone who has an unrighteous cause. Someone who has the resh, of course, which is a person or chief, and then the shin, it means devouring. It means destruction. So this person of destruction, and their experiences destruction, and so they're already guilty. They're already liable to punishment, and it says they're going to be winnowed like chaff. And with violent exhalation, the ruach shall drive them away. Now, this is one of those points that it really bothers me. because you'll find most translation says the wind drives them away. But it is not wind. Wind is resh, la, hey. And ruach is the het, or hot. And the ruach, if you look at the paleo, the ruach is resh, the uah vowel, which is a connector, and the het it can either be an obstruction or a wall of protection. And so the ruach is a wall of protection. And of course, you've got the resh, which represents a person or chief. And so it's the person who is a wall of protection. And as you can see, she blows them away. She drives them away. And she's protecting. And who's she protecting? I think you know who she's protecting. And it says, the morally wrong shall not rise when the verdict or judicial ruling comes. They will not stand, in some translations. Or when you say shall stand, it means they will not arise. I'm wondering sometimes, does that mean they're not going to give a testimony, or they cannot arise against someone, as in they can't bring forth their accusation. They can't stand fast. It can also mean that they can't stand fast. It means they won't be able to continue. They will not be able to continue when the verdict or the judicial ruling comes, because again, they're already condemned. And so they shall not congregate with the Zadayah Kuyam. This is the righteous, the ones who follow the correct path. They're not going to congregate with those who are following the right path. And again, this scene, it's like a scene in a courtroom. In this particular setting, you've got the morally wrong. They're not going to be able to stand. They're not going to be able to continue. They're not going to congregate with the righteous. The self-existing one, Yaha Waha, you can see he's ascertaining, he's acknowledging, he's advising, he's looking at the evidence. That's what's going on here. He's looking at the evidence. And then, after his careful observation, he cares for and instructs the course of life or the mode of action of these Zadayah Kuyam. And the morally wrong, the transgressors of the Torah with their customs and their mode of action, they shall perish with no chance of escape. So we have this one person, he's a firm tree. He will continue, just like a tree, this beautiful, luscious tree. But then you've got this other, he's going to be blown away with a violent exhalation of the Ruach, and he will perish, or she will perish with no chance of escape. So thus ends 1.
Right. Psalm 2. Those nations who have no covenant with Yahuwah make a tumult. They rage. They gather into a community. They mediate. They study worthless things in vain. Malachiah of earth takes position. The noble princes take counsel. They advise one another. They establish a foundation. They set their plans, united, working as one, to cast off, break asunder, any bond or restraint. The self-existent one, Yahuwah, Masha Yakauah, place upon them. Cast off, hurl away, the wreathed chains. The established one who dwells, the keeper of the house, settles down to judge. The high and lofty one, above the arch of sky, shall with laughter and loud derision make sport of them. Adonai shall mock, he shall hold them in derision. Answer, command, subdue with your word. With the flare of his nostrils and a blast of his wrath, they shall be dismayed speedily. Palpitations shall seize them at his fierce anger. Pour out a libation, anoint Malach, king and messenger, set him upon his throne, upon the sacred mountain of Zion. Make an inscription, scribe and tally mark, declare, make enactment, appoint time, space, quantity, and labor. The self existent, eternal one, Yahuwah, hath certified, hath earnestly promised, Son, builder of the house, from sunrise to sunset, you are brought forth. I declare your pedigree. Inquire of me, entreat my leave, and I will assign, I will appoint, I will recompense, I will deliver a troop of animals, a flock of locusts, foreign nations as your inheritance and possession. In your displeasure, spoil them, break them in pieces, afflict those who have afflicted with the rod of correction, a tool of iron, dash them to pieces, scatter them as a potter, mold and fashion them as a vessel, a weapon, an instrument, or psalter. Consider yourselves and deal prudently. Your Malachayim, your royal governing ones, be chastised and reproved. You that contend with violent emotion, cringe with fear, shudder and tremble. Attach yourselves to the heir apparent. He is sorely displeased. He breathes hard in his wrath. Fall and perish. You shall not escape when he treads down, when he threshes. When with the flare of his nostrils, the fire of his wrath is kindled but a little. The Barak and happy flee to his protection. The Barak and happy make the self-existent one, Yahuwah, their refuge.
All right. Thank you, Noel. This one is actually a really good companion piece to Psalm 1 because again, you have sort of there's a little bit of a judgment scene here. This one was really, for me, this one was a little bit shocking in some ways. You have, I know that you've probably heard the word, the goyim, or those who have no covenant with Yahweh. Now, why are they in an uproar? And why are they making this tumult? Now, this word for uproar, it actually it means that if you can picture it, if you've ever been or seen a huge crowd, you've got this huge crowd in front of you, and you know the murmuring and the sound that a huge crowd can make, even when they're trying to be quiet. So that is what's going on here. It's this huge crowd of people, and they're making a tumult. They're I guess you say starting to protest, and they're raging. They are they're making these sounds of rage and anger, and so they've gathered into a community. They meditate, they study worthless things. Now, why are they gathering into a community? Why are they? Why are they? The word here is. Let me find it. So they have set themselves. They've gathered themselves. They've taken a position. They're taking a position, and this position is against. Against. So we have here. I put in the malachaya, and that is actually singular. That is a singular word, and it actually means my malach. But it's not a good king. He takes a position. He takes a position in these noble council, these noble princes who are counseling one another and advising one another, and they're joining together. Yahad. Instead of Ahad, they're Yahad. And so they're joining together, they're working together, and they're united as one. And their goal is to cast off the restraints of Yahweh and his Mashiach. That's that word, Mashiach. So that's Mashiach. So you've got Mashiach and Yahweh. You've got Yah, you've got Mashiach, and they don't want to be restrained. I know that some of you have seen that speech where Ronald Reagan said, if all the nations, if we had an outside threat, we would band together. All of the nations would band together, and that's basically what's going on here. And the threat that they have, the position that they have taken, is against the Most High. This Melachaya of earth, he's taken a position against the Most High, and so they're making plans, and that is their goal. And I know that a lot of you, we see so much stuff. We see so much stuff here on the Unexpected Cosmology Discord group. We see so much where some of these secret plans and things are exposed. And part of it is in this next, the established one who dwells, the keeper of the house, he settles down to judge. And he's laughing. He's laughing at them. Adonai is laughing, and he's mocking them at all their plans, all their little secret societies. He laughs at it. And it says that he subdues them with his word. He subdues them with his word. And I think that he speaks to them in his anger, is what some versions say, and in his sore displeasure. And they're dismayed in an instant at his anger. And I love the way that the Hebrews, when they talk about anger, it has a physical. It's not just this emotion. It's not just a abstract emotion. They actually equate to something physical that's going on. In this case, they're saying his nostrils are flaring. He's got a blast of his wrath. In some cases, it means his face turns red. And so it's like this physical response. And so his anger arises, and a sudden fear seizes him. Now, this next king that is mentioned on page 10, bottom of page 10, it says, pour out a libation, anoint Malach, king and messenger, set him upon his throne. This is a different king. We've got a different king here, and he's set upon the sacred mountain of Zion. Now, we've kind of been delving into a lot about that mountain of Zion, and a lot of stuff that we have found. The word Zion, or Zayalan, it sometimes they say it means sunny mountain, but the Paleo meaning, it's a shining, conspicuous work of the established trail. That's what the symbols, the letters, actually mean. The first two letters of the word Zion actually makes Zayah, which means ship. It can also mean dryness, but so they saw a ship as a dry place in the middle of the water. So Zion has as its root word, that two-parent root, is ship. So Zion is a ship. It can also, it's bubbling up, and so Zion is can mean also mean a signpost, a pillar. It has been set up or erected. That's from Jeremiah. It can when it's it's beautifully situated, rising upward. It's the peak of the mountain. So it says to make an inscription, scribe the tally mark, declare, make an enactment. It's all this. It's like this is a legal document. We're looking at a legal document here related to Malak, the king and messenger. We've got a legal document that's been made, and Yahweh, the Eternal One, in this document, he's certified, he's promised son. Now that word son is bet or bat and nun, and it means offspring or son. Now this is different from later on. This is just son. Builder of the house, from sunrise to sunset, you're brought forth. I declare your pedigree. So we've got a legal document. He sits upon his throne, this Malak, this king, and he's got a pedigree. And this is what is still Yah talking. Inquire of me, entreat my leave, and I will assign, I will appoint, I will recompense, I will deliver to you a troop of animals, a flock of these going as your inheritance and possession. And he's saying you can do whatever you want to with them. You can spoil them, break them into pieces, afflict those who have been afflicting. Now this was a little bit graphic, and if there are children, cover their ears. This dash them to pieces. I'm telling you, really, it's fixing to get graphic. So this dash them into pieces with a tool of iron. It's meaning in the Hebrew where you're breaking through and breaking down to the marrow of the bone, and the marrow is spilling out. Scatter them as a potter, mold and fashion them as a vessel, a weapon, an instrument, or a psalter. So these are the going, which are the nations who have no covenant. These are the ones who are in. These are the ones way back when. These are the ones who have taken a position against the Most High. And he says he's warning them. The next stanza on page 12, top of 12, he says, deal prudently, you Melachayim. This is the plural of kings, you royal governing ones. Be chastised and reprove, you that are contending. He's giving them a warning. He says you need to be cringing with fear. You need to be shuddering and trembling. This is a type of fear that is just you're almost incapacitated. And in some translations, the next stanza it says kiss the Son. It's actually you cling to him, you twine yourself to him, you attach yourself to him. I always had the picture in my mind of, like, if you've ever had a toddler to grab you around your leg and they won't let go, and so you're trying to walk. So you've attached yourself closely to the heir apparent. Now that word for heir apparent is different. It's different. It's bar, bet resh, and it means son or heir. Now that's different from just son. Son is any offspring, but the bet resh is the one who's inheriting all things. It is the root word for bakor, which is the firstborn. It's also bachara, which is the blessing, that was given to, that Jacob cheated, him out of. Well, he tricked him out of, and it's also the blessing that was given to Ephraim. It's that the birthright is more than the birthright. It's a land grant. So he is the heir of all things, the bar, and he attach yourself to him. He is sorely displeased. Again, we have this picture of he breathes hard in his wrath. This is their idea of anger, where you're just breathing really heavy. He says, "Fall and perish, you will not escape." When he treads down, when he threshes, with a flare of his nostrils, the fire of his wrath is kindled, but a little, just a smidge. And it's so he's this is again, they're giving him a warning. These two stanzas are warnings. And then finally it it winds down. It kindly it brings it back, this first idea that the Baruch and happy flee to his protection. They flee to his protection. Uh, they make the self-existent one their refuge. Now, if I can get my thing to working, here we go. It's a wonderful picture in. I can find. Uh, so, yes, you have Hasa, those who put their trust in him. So that's got that het, that wall of protection that's just in the ruach. That's the word for refuge. Hasa, which is a het, samek, and the hay or ha in the paleo. So that is a refuge, a place of safety. So this happy one is the one who make him their refuge. And what happens to those, who do not attach themselves? This is what you will not escape. You will fall and perish. And so thus ends Psalm 2, which is one of my favorites.
When we talk about the mountain of Melchizedek in a few weeks, about Zion being a floating ship, you will all have to act surprised. We'll be revisiting that again. Psalm 3. Pamela and I have been working a lot on these translations and the hidden wilderness. Psalm 3. Of David when he bolted from before the face of Absalom his son. O self-existent one, Yahuwah, how my adversary has increased, like raindrops, accumulating, building, growing into a flood, multiplying into thousands, nay, 10,000s. They pitch tents against me, they rear up offenses. They press me into a narrow place, affliction, anguish, tribulation. I am shot through with arrows. They crowd together, rank upon rank, plenteous in number. Elders, captains, mighty ones, they boast. They publish reports. They declare to my nephash, to my vitality, to the living, breathing essence of myself. There is no Yasha in Alahayam. And then we see here a Salaha, a dramatic pause in the music. Yahuwah, shield of scaly crocodile hide, the defense and splendor of Israel. You exalted my head. I proclaimed the self-existent one, the eternal, Yahuwah, with my voice. He heeded, he answered. He sang in response from the sacred place, his set-apart mountain. Another dramatic pause in the music. Like one ravished by a lover, I cast myself down, exhausted. I slept. Startled, I woke to keep watch. Yahuwah supported me when I wavered. I will not dread, even if the thousands become 10,000s and these multiply into millions, even if troops, nations, peoples array themselves to encircle my dwelling or encompass me about like an angry horde. Arise, Yahuwah, confirm by decree, Yasha, preserve, avenge, rescue, Allah, Alu Aha, smite these murderers. Wound my foes upon the jawbone, crush and destroy the front teeth of the morally wrong, the guilty and condemned. Yahuwah, self existent one, Yahuwah, upon the tribes of Israel, your prosperity, followed by a dramatic cessation of the music.
Okay, now I forgot to say this. A Mizmor of David. Now that is a lot of his songs have that as their heading. A Mizmor of David. Um, and this word Mizmor, usually they say it's a song or a psalm of David. What's interesting about it is that the Zion in the middle uh, represents a tool. It always represents a tool. Um, and it is probably a um, a song or music, a poem that is there may be like a plectrum, like we would think of a guitar pick as a plectrum. In ancient times, they used sometimes feathers to uh, pluck the instrument, something like a dulcimer, and you would have this plectrum, this thing that's plucking the notes with it. And it has also the heading of when he bolted from before the face of Absalom, his son. Now that's really uh, it's a sad heading to think that his son, whom he named uh, my father's shalom, my father's completeness. He named this son Abshalom, which and it's really sad. Some people translate shalom as peace. So my father's peace, my father's completeness, um, and so he's fleeing before Absalom because Absalom had started an insurrection, and he had turned the hearts of the people against David. And so when he flees from Jerusalem, and this is some of the anguish of his heart. And he says, "How my adversary has increased." So I guess it would be shocking to one whose name means beloved. That's what David's name means. It means beloved. And suddenly, he's out of favor, and his detractors, these people who are against him, have increased. And this this word for increase, it means they keep piling up and piling up. They keep getting more and more and more, and they trouble me. They're troubling him, and they're pitching tents against him. They're rearing up. This is a military action, and he is just. I can just see his devastation that these have raised up against him, and they crowd together, rank upon rank, um, plenteous in numbers, elders, captains, mighty ones. That's Gibor. Uh, they they boast, they publish reports, they say to my nefesh. Now, this is it's usually it's usually translated as deliverance. There is no salvation. There is no deliverance. That word yasha is the root word. Uh, it is for our Savior's name, Yasha Allah, and there is no salvation. There is no yasha in Al Hayam. So, I mean, you still have people who say, "Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're in a corner here. How are you going to get out of it?" And and so he has this. He likes to put in these. It's sometimes pronounced salah in the modern. Salaha it is a dramatic pause in the music. It can be a change of tempo. It can be a just where things are shifting and changing. It's like you've heard music where it's one mood in the music and it changes. And he says, Yaha Waha, shield of scaly crocodile head hide. Uh, he says, you are the defense and splendor of Israel. You exalted my head, or you have lifted me up. Now, this word glory, well, it's sometimes called glory, the defense and splendor. That is kabod in the modern, or kabod, and it means heavy. It means heaviness. And so what you have is, if you've ever seen some of these glorious garments, that it's the if you can imagine that someone's garments has had gold, I mean real gold embroidered on the hem or whatever, and they've got jewels that have been placed upon the garment. There's settings of pearls or diamonds or sapphires on the garment. And so you got all this ornamentation on the garment that the person is wearing. And so kabod, this, or kabod in the modern, it's heavy. It's heavy. The garment is heavy because there's such a weight of this splendor, this garment that he's wearing. And so the splendor of Yah, just think of the weight of all creation, that he created all of this thing, and the weight of it is his splendor. He said, my kabod will fill, it fills heaven and earth. And it's the weight of everything. And he says, you exalted my head. You lifted me up. I was cast down and you lifted me up. And that's actually the word Rosh. You've heard of Rosh Hosanna, Rosh, um, you know, it's actually head. Resh, Aleph, Shin, Rash. You are the lifter up of my head. And it means it's like you've been cast down. Someone who's been who's been who's who has been cast down, but then they arise. They're exalted. They became very high and lofted and powerful. And so it's he's saying, I was cast down, but you lifted up my head. And so he says, I called out with my voice. I called out to him. And that word, I love that word. I love that word, for he answered. Um, and he answered him. Uh, he sang in response. Sometimes the answers are, he sang back to me. I called out, I cried out like a wild animal, and he sings back to me. And he sings, where does he sing from? That same sacred place, his set apart mountain. Now, um, it's not said that this is Zion, but we have that understanding. And so again, another pause in the music, change of tempo, change of mood. Now, like one ravished by a lover, and it does mean what it means. I'm trying to keep it G here, but that means what it means. it means what you suppose it means. It's that kind of exhaustion. So he cast himself down. He's so exhausted, he just cast himself down, and he slept. And he startled awake. He's startled awake, and he said that while I was wavering, while I was while I was not doing so well, he sustained me. He supported me. Now that word for support is actually the word samach, which is a letter in the Hebrew. And that letter, um, it's like, well, let me see if I can type it into the chat. It's like it's represents the thorn. It represents the thorn, the samach. If you look here, it's going to go to the right. It's 3 lines straight across and then 1 line down, and it's a thorn, samach, and it was used by the ancients. They used this to to support, and say for instance, they use thorns. Shepherds would use thorns to protect their flock at night. So they would take this thorn and create a hedge. So he said he supported me. So he's supporting me, but he's also protecting. Is what's going on. It's what I'm trying to, I guess, to point out. And so you have supported me. And he's saying, I'm not going to be afraid of all this. I mean, he was at first, to be sure, when he saw his son, turn against him and start an insurrection. And when he saw all these people who joined in with Absalom to fight against him, and he had to flee for his life. He had to run. Anyone who was supported him, they were all on the run with him. And so he says, even if these that are already, there's so many of them, even if they multiply into millions and they encompass me around, he said, arise, arise, Yaha Waha, confirmed by decree. Again, that's a legal, it's legal, it's a legal term, confirmed by decree. Yasha, your deliverance, confirm it by your deliverance by decree. And he says to preserve, avenge, rescue me. And this is the singular of Allah Hayam. This is Allah Uaha. And he said, smite them, wound my foes upon the jawbone, crush and destroy their teeth. And of course, if you think of a predator who loses their teeth, they're not so scary anymore. I think about that silly movie that people watch in December about that abominable snowman, and they pulled his teeth, and he wasn't so scary anymore. So you would wound your foe upon the jawbone, those back teeth, and destroy their front teeth, the morally wrong and the condemned, the guilty and condemned. So these people who do not follow Torah, they're already condemned. They're already condemned. And so he says, he ends this psalm. I'm having trouble with my device. It doesn't want to scroll. He's asking for, number one, he's asking again for, actually, he's asking for Yeshua. He's not just Yasha. Right here, he's asking for Yeshua. He's asking for salvation. It's a noun. He said, your salvation upon your people. Now, this is the word and it actually means people who are in covenant with him. And he asks for Baruch, which is it's I love this word. It's found in the Aaronic, the Aaron's benediction. I don't like to use the word blessing, but it literally means someone who inclines towards you, who gives you favor. It means someone who kneels down and places a gift at your feet. And so it's it's a wonderful gift. It's it can even be mean an invocation of good upon your life. So that's what he's asking. Please give your gifts. Please give your prosperity to the tribes of Yasharel. And then again, it ends with a dramatic cessation of the music. It thus ends Psalm 3.
All right, Psalm 4. To the preeminent musician, to the superintendent of temple services, to the musicians on stringed instruments and singers, a psalm of David or a mizmor of David. And this is what it says: I cry out for help. Answer me tunefully, O Allahayam, Sada Kuya, my righteous, I guess Al,
Be
all, okay.
usually they some in modern they say El, as in the beginning of Elohayam or Elohim. It should be pronounced all, but pronouncing it El is how they do it in modern.
All right. My righteous all. In the name of the Messianic King, respond. The adversary has edged me into a narrow place. I am crowded, cut off from escaping by my opponents. Make room for me. Enlarge my borders. Lead me by the hand to broad open spaces. Pity me. Hear and do, O Allahayam. Regard my voice. Hear my hymn of supplication. Sons of men, tell me, how long will you continue to bring reproach upon honor? How long will you cast insult upon dignity? Your appetite craves idleness. You love emptiness and vanity. You flirt with falsehood. You chase after a lie. You earnestly desire deceit. And then we see Salaha, a dramatic pause in the music. Tempo change. Consider the marked out and separate. Distinguish the distinctly set apart. O Yahuwah, lead by the hand the faithful and kind, the pious and merciful. O Yahuwah, Shema, hear and do. Al, strong leader, hear when I cry out. Please listen when I make mention. I command my inner man, tremble and quake. Be perturbed, stand in awe. Do not miss the way. Do not incur guilt. Purify yourself from uncleanness. Think. Instruct your mind, your heart, your soul, and your understanding. Within your bedchamber, upon your couch, be still and silent. Wait. Sacrifice the Passover. Slaughter with divine justice. Follow Sadak, righteousness. Use just weights, just balances. Have confidence. Make yourself secure in all Yahuwah. Many and great are those who declare, those who boast and answer proudly. Who will perceive the good? Who will consider what is valuable and appropriate? Who will discern what is rich and pleasant? Bear me up and let me be exalted, according to the light of your countenance, O Yahuwah. Appoint my wages, grant me happy issue. Bestow mirth and gladness to my mind, my will, my heart, and my understanding. Give to me more joy than that experienced by laborers during the corn harvest, more than had during the season of wheat and grain, when the wine, the squeezed out grapes are multiplied. Shalom, I am complete. Wholeness, health, and prosperity are mine. I cast myself down as one ravished by a lover. I sleep a deep, satisfying slumber. For you alone, O Alahayim, my rock, my security, cause me to abide in safety.
Now, this is also one that I really love this one. Now, this one is, I think, the first one in book one that has a very interesting word. It is the word nasa. If I can get I'm having trouble with my device. I am so sorry. It's the word nasa, not nata, and nasach. I'm sorry. And it's very interesting because the noon, there are some people that say that it should be pronounced nakash, not noon. If you know what nakash is, it is the word for serpent. And in the paleo, it looks like a lightning bolt coming down. And let me see if you can. Oh, yeah, there it is. The first word, it's the third symbol. You have it's not actually in one. If you'll notice, it's not verse one, it's to the far right. And that third symbol, that is the noon or the nachash. And it looks like a lightning bolt. And it represents life. And it also represents this glitter, this glittering from afar. And if you think about it, there we have the zadi, which is the symbol for a trail. So this trail of our path of shining, glittering from afar. And so this person that is dedicated to or sent to is it could mean any of these three things: a preeminent musician, superintendent of temple services, musician or chief musician. And the Nagin, I can't pronounce this one too well. The Naga Ya Nuha, or it just depends on which version you're looking at. It's a stringed instrument. We have another one. It's actually a mocking song or a taunt song, and again, it's like a satire, if you will. And so again, we have the Mizmor of David, and so it could be that this instrument used a plectrum, kind of like a pick. And so he says, I cry out. I cry out to you and answer me when I call. And again, it's that it's kara, and it's this calling out with weeping. And it's a powerful, the aleph means it's a powerful call. And so he's calling out with this powerful call unto Al Hayam, who is he's Zedekiah, which is my righteousness, my just cause, my righteous Al. Now that A-L, capital A, capital L. You could actually, I left it in, I transliterated it all, but it could be, I could say strong leader. Those two symbols could mean, or it could also mean chief shepherd. So my righteous chief shepherd, in the name of the Messianic king, respond. So the adversary has hedged me in. Now, in terms of you've got this contrasting idea. You've got this distress. You're pushed into a narrow place where you don't have any option, and it's this zadi, which is a path, the path of the chief path, or of the path of a man. So you've been in this narrow, tight space. You've been pushed into this, and it can also mean adversary. Tsar, we have these in Russia. They have czar, and that's the word. A czar. It's an adversary, an enemy, and I see more and more where you can see that there's hints of the language. It was once one language, and then after Babel, everything scattered. But there's hints of the original language uh, in different places. And czar means one who pushes you into this place of distress, this narrow place. And it can also mean like a hard stone. So this czar, this opponent, has pressed him into a narrow place. He's crowded. He can't escape. And so when he's asking for salvation here, he's asking, for relief from this. So he's wanting, send me, enlarge my space. And I really love this word for. He said, hear my. He says, pity me, and that word is hanan. And there again, you have that het, that or het, as it's called in the modern. It's this wall of protection. Be this wall of protection for me, which is pity me. And he says, Shema. That's the word you find in Deuteronomy. He says, Shema, O Israel. And so he's like, hear and do. That word Shema, it doesn't mean just hear, it means do something about it. Do something about it. So he says, hear my tefillim, which is where we get the word Psalms from. Hear my hymn of supplication, my tefillim. And so he's asking, how long are you going to do this? How long are you going to dishonor me, bring reproach? And this you love what is worthless. And you see this a lot in the Psalms. This thing that is worthless, this vanity. You love that which is vain, emptiness, something that it has no fruit. And this is the idea of like idolatry. You're chasing after a lie. You're chasing after that which is false. And so you're flirting with these falsehoods. You're flirting with these idols, and a lot of people don't realize that they're mixing idolatry into what they're calling worship of the Most High, and they're chasing after a lie. It's a deity they've created themselves. And so you earnestly desire deceit. So again, we have another change. David loves to do that. Another dramatic pause, Salaha. And then we have a different idea. He said that I'm pressed into this narrow place. You people are adversaries. You're making it tough on me. And so now he's saying Yah has set apart. He has set apart. He's set apart that the person that is godly for himself. Now I want to get to that word for godly. I just love it. But set apart, it means he's distinct. He's marked. He's separated. He has made them illustrious, distinguished. Uh, they're not part of these adversaries. And he says he has set apart the godly for himself. Now that word that's translated godly, it's actually um has hasa hasa yad hasayad hasayad. And it's a wonderful word. What you've got, I'm sure you've heard of the word mercy. It occurs, but what it actually is, you've got that het again. You've got the het and the samak, which put these together, it becomes refuge. It becomes the word refuge. Those two symbols, the het and the samak, and it's a word for refuge. And then you put the dalet, which is the door to the refuge. So hased or hasad, which is usually translated as mercy, is actually means a door to refuge. He said, what does Yah require of you, O man? To do justice, to love mercy, to love hasad, to love, be that door to a refuge for somebody. And so you take that word hasad, that word for mercy, and you drop the yod in, which is the symbol for work. So it's a work. You're working at this. This person who is godly. The word for God, the godly is hasayad, hasayad, which is, you're working. You're working at. It's someone who's working at being merciful. That person is working to open that door of refuge for someone. And so it says again that Yah is going to hear and do. Shema, hear and do. Strong leader, or again, that could be chief shepherd. Hear when I call out. I cry out powerfully, and listen when I make mention. So now he's talking to himself. He's been talking to Yah. He's talking, this is verse 4. If you're following along in the Paleo, this is verse 4. He says he's commanding his inner person. He's talking to himself. He says to tremble and quake, be perturbed, stand in awe. Do not miss the way. Now, this word miss the way is sin. I didn't put sin in. I've tried to give you a picture of how they saw it. We say the word sin, and a lot of people, they've got kind of a callous over their soul for the word sin. And so if you go back to the original thought of what sin was, we've talked about that the symbol for het could mean a wall of protection. It can also be an obstruction. So the word for sin, you've got the het or hot, and you've got the tet, which is surround. It's a surround, and then alif, which means power or strong. So you've got a strong obstruction. Sin is a strong obstruction in your path. So when someone to follow righteousness is tzedakah, it's the right path, and sin is an obstruction in that path. It's a strong obstruction, and you can also say that it's a misstep. It's some way that you have failed, you have incurred guilt. And so he's still talking to himself. He's saying, don't do this. don't sin, don't miss the way, don't don't put an obstruction upon your own path. He says, meditate, think, instruct your mind, your heart, and your soul, your understanding. Be silent and still, uh, and wait. Just wait. And that's probably the hardest thing to do, is to wait. Oh no, we want to get ahead. And so he's I I left out a salaha. Oh man, I can't believe I did that. So again, he's got salaha. Here's another pause. I can't. I hate that I left that out. He says, sacrifice the Passover. Sacrifice the Passover, slaughter with divine justice. Follow Zedek, which is again the right path, righteousness, and have confidence. Make yourself sure in the strong leader or chief shepherd, Yahweh. He said, many are many are declaring. They're declaring Amar. That's Amar. He's like, they're saying, who will perceive the good? That's Tob or Tuab. He's like, and who's going to see what's valuable and appropriate, what's rich and pleasant? And he said, bear me up and let me be exalted. That's Nasa, or look like NASA to us, that word, the transliteration. And it is noon, Samek, and hey, behold again. So he's like, let me be exalted, which means just lift me up according to the light of your countenance. And that word, or, however you want to pronounce it, this is the light that we see in Genesis. It is a strong light, a powerful light, a primary light, a light that comes from every direction. And this light is found in his countenance, which is his faces. I put countenance, but it actually is faces, the faces of Yahweh. And so he's praying to Yah. He says he wants his wages. He says, pay me my wages. And again, that the idea of these people who work, they work and they think that they'll never see any good. But he says, point me my wages. He believes that he will be repaid. Grant me happy issue, which that's the longing of the heart. Happy issue. Bestow mirth and gladness to my mind, my will, my heart, and my understanding. And that's the thought of nafash. The heart. When you see that word heart, it's not just a bodily organ. This is your the center of your emotions, the center of your will and purpose. It is the leader inside. That is what it literally means in the Paleo. It is the authority inside of you, this authority in your body. It is that part of you that causes you to do what you do. And he says, Bring mirth and joy and gladness to my mind, my will, my heart, and my understanding. That's actually all one word, lob or leb, and it is uh, the authority inside. And he says more than when than that which is experienced by laborers during the corn harvest, or more than during the season of wheat and grain. And he says, when you have this wine, the squeezed out grapes, when all that's multiplied. Now we have shalom or shalom. He says, I'm complete. I'm whole. I'm at peace. Health and prosperity are mine. I will cast myself down as one ravished by a lover. Again, that's that wonderfully exhausted sleep, this kind of a sleep that is so refreshing. I sleep a deep, satisfying slumber, for you alone, O Alahayam, my rock, my security. Only you cause me to dwell in safety. And that word for safety is bata. You cause me to dwell, to settle down. It's security. It's to have this confident mind. You're in this town surrounded by walls. You have no fear. So you have this deep, satisfying slumber where you feel safe and secure, and and he gives credit to Allah Hayam for that sense of security and confidence. And thus ends 4.
All right, Psalm 5, preeminent musician, superintendent of temple services, to be performed on the woodwind instrument, the flute, to the melody, behold the divided inheritance of David once again. Hearken to my words, listen, O Yahuwah, self-existent, eternal one. Consider diligently my murmuring, my whispered complaints. Incline your ears unto my voice, unto the sound of my cry. Malak, king and messenger. I will set my thoughts in order. I will array myself in battle gear. Doorkeeper, strong leader, keep watch for me. O Allahayam, strong leader, toward you do I make supplication. Hear me, consider my meditations. Incline your attention. Mark well the cry, Shah Uwa Ah Yah. The sound of the woodwind, the song of my heart. For unto you, Malak Elohim, strong leader, I do pray. Yaha Uha. When night ends and sunrise brings bright joy, grant my request. Hear with interest my voice as it breaks at the coming of daylight. Strong leader, you do not desire wickedness. You do not favor crimes against your moral law. Violence does not please you. You do not sojourn with the disagreeable. You do not inhabit the tents of the unkind. You do not dwell with the malignant and quarrelsome. The boastful ones shall not present themselves before your eye. You oppose all who practice systematic and habitual falsehood. Workers of vanity, sowers of sorrow, shall not position themselves in your holy court. Destroyed be speakers of untruth. They vanish. Those weavers of deceit, liars perish. The man who sheds innocent blood, the treacherous, Yahuwah detest. As for me, in the abundance of your kindness and the excellence of your favor, I come into your family. Your faithfulness multiplies. I shelter in your house in the land of Ephraim. I bow down. Within your set apart dwelling before the presence, I give reverence to you, O Allahayam, O Yahuwah. Turn my eyes toward Zadok, righteousness. As one outside, a weary traveler, guide me towards your tabernacle. Bestow upon me the inheritance of righteousness in order to reveal the purpose of my opponents on account of the insidious watchers. In front of seraphim and in the faces of cherubim, make straight my path, my journey, the course of my life. Their breath is not stable, their mouth is not established. In due time their work shall be revealed. In the house of man their thoughts shall be made apparent. Their throats open into a chasm. Their tongue devours calamity and ruin. With breath they scatter, with speech they divide, with language they plunder. These strong who lead into chaos, who ensnare, devour, and offend, O Alahayim, cast down these fallen ones by their own devices, ensnare them with their own counsel. Let all rejoice and be glad that flee for protection, that seek refuge in Alahayim. You lead them to the ancient house. You establish them fixed, immovable, for this time, further than one could see or perceive, to the edge of the horizon and beyond. Give a ringing cry, exult and praise, sing for joy. Fenced about, shut in, defended, they dwell triumphant in your house. They rejoice in your fame. You bestow gifts of righteousness, a rich inheritance upon those who guard your Torah. O Yahuwah, self-existent, eternal one, you surround the just with goodwill. You crown the faithful with favor, as a barbed shield, as a buckler crafted of scaly dragon hide that guards with prickliness and with piercing cold. You protect all those who wait on you.
All right. So in this one, the beginning of this one, the heading of this one, we have a new instrument. We've had the we've talked about the nig 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 niginoth, which is the a type of song, but it's also a stringed instrument. We have another one. Um, in this case, it's called the Shimonith in the modern, Shama Yana Uath in the Paleo. And so this is another type of instrument. It has an octave. It's an octave. The meaning is kind of, they're not quite sure of what the meaning is on that one, but it does have like the octave in it. And of course the Mizmor, again, a song of David. Um, and so um, he's asking again, for he's asking for help. He says, consider diligently my murmuring, my whispered complaint. Hear the sound of my cry. Uh, sorry. Hear my groaning. And again, he's saying, my malach, which is my king, um, and my alahayam. Now, the interesting part about the word malach, it is the root for it, the two-letter root for it is lamad, or lamed, and kaf, and it means foot. So a malak is one who walks for another. And so that's why, messenger is a really good word for a king, is actually one who should be a messenger from the Most High. But of course, unfortunately, that does not always happen. They're usually a messenger for themselves. But he says to this malak, this king and messenger, he says, hear my cry uh, unto you. This is a outcry, a cry for help, a little bit different from the kara that we had before, and he's begging for help. And he says, he's watching, he's waiting. I'm praying to you. I'm arraying myself in battle gear, and he says strong leader. I'm I'm in the morning. This thought of I'm when sunrise brings bright joy in the morning. The sunrise, bright joy. He says, grant my request. And so it's got this daybreak, but he's also saying my voice breaks. So he's saying that my cry, which it could be this cry for help, it can also mean the sound of the woodwind, or a song to his heart. He says, unto you I pray, when night ends and sunrise brings bright joy. He says, grant my request. And so you've got this thought that he's been praying throughout the night. And so he's been praying throughout the night, and then morning brings bright joy. And this, I don't know if you've had this experience in your life, but again, I'm going back to most recent history, my most recent history. Wednesday afternoon, my daughter was rushed to the emergency room, and she was 37 weeks pregnant, and she was diagnosed with preeclampsia. And so during the whole night, this whole night, I was terrified. I was petrified, and I was praying, and and my granddaughter was born right before sunrise. And I mean, just like the last few instances before the sun came up over the horizon. Her name is Eliora, which means El is my light. And so the morning brought bright joy for us because she was delivered safely. And once, of course, Jessica was the delivered of the baby, the preeclampsia. I mean, that's the only cure that they said for preeclampsia was delivering the baby. And so my voice, it breaks at the coming of daylight. Now, again, we have that Aleph and the Lamed. A lot of times that is not translated. You don't realize that there are a lot of times that there are symbols and letters that they just don't translate. It'll say something like not available, not available. They just don't translate it. But if you look at this right here, the Aleph and the Lamed, it can mean strong leader, pronounced all, or it can mean chief shepherd. You do not desire wickedness. That is that, and that word wickedness, again, it's Rasha, and it is that falsehood, unrighteousness, fraud. It actually means fraud, something fraudulent. You do not favor crimes against your moral law. And that word there for um, your moral law would be, of course, uh, the Torah. So he says, they shall not, he says, you do not favor these crimes. Violence doesn't please you. You don't sojourn with the disagreeable. That one kind of hit me. You don't inhabit the tents of the unkind. You don't dwell with the malignant and quarrelsome. At the time of this writing, sometimes, I was living with some that were quarrelsome, and then I felt like I was being infected by the quarrelsomeness. So it can happen to us all. So the boastfulness shall not present themselves before your eye. And it is ion, which is, of course, a symbol for experience. The ion represents your experiences, your knowledge. It can mean knowledge. And he says, they can't exist before your eye, in your sight. You know, you oppose all who practice systematic and habitual falsehood. And this is again, it's people who are following after this emptiness, this vanity, which is idolatry. Uh, Idolatry is often it's often associated with something that's empty and vain. And so it's also, this is the same word, workers of vanity, sowers of sorrow. These are people who are doing this habitual falsehood. They've got this, they cause misfortune. They cause calamity in other people's lives. And he says they will not have a position. They will not set themselves up in your court. And this, again, this goes back to that same scene we had a couple of Psalms ago, that the unrighteous will not stand, it will not arise in judgment. And so he says they're not reliable. These people aren't reliable, because uh, they are they're destroyed because of this untruth. They're going to vanish. They're going to perish. These people who shed innocent blood, he detests them. They will one day be gone. They will one day be gone. And he says those who follow after you, these who follow after you, these who I'm going to trust in the abundance of your kindness. I will shelter in your house. And I'm trying to find my notes. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to shelter in your house. Now that this is actually bayat, which means, of course, house, but originally, when the language came about, which I believe it was from the beginning, the bet, the bat, the symbol for house, it actually represents the house, as in the house of Yah, because in the beginning people didn't live in houses. I suppose that in the garden maybe they slept under trees, or I'm not sure, but that symbol means inside, or house, or family. So I'm going to dwell. I'm going to take shelter in your house, in your family. And I think after the fall of humanity, I think they felt they went to a shelter. Their shelter they found was like a cave or something like that. And so he says, I will find shelter in your house, in it's your palace, your fortress, your temple, your dwelling, what's inside, in your family, all of these things I'm going to, in particular, I'm going to find my shelter there. He says, I bow down within your set apart dwelling. Before the presence, I give reference to you, O Al-Hayam. And he says, turn my eyes unto righteousness. Some translations say, lead me. Naha, guide me. Naha, guide me. Lead me lead me back, can actually lead me back to righteousness. Um, Sort of like as you would think of the prodigal son, lead me back to righteousness as one outside. Now, a person who's an outcast, it hata, it you know, you have that het again. It's a barrier, uh, and he says, "Guide me to your tabernacle, bestow upon me the inheritance of righteousness, in order to reveal the purpose of my opponent." Um, and this is sharar, which is, when you have double a double consonant in Hebrew, it's it usually has a negative meaning, and so this is someone who's twisted away. They've turned away, um, and this person is hard in a bad sense, and they're an adversary. They're an adversary. So you've got this shin or shan at the very beginning. It's destruction. Someone who's doing this path of destruction, and who are not following the darak of al hayam. They're not following his path. They're not following their path, following their own path. And so he says, lead me in your way. Righteousness, remember, is zedekiah, and it means to follow the right path. He says, make your darak straight. Make it straight. Let it be um, let it be revealed. All these people who have been following their own devices. These people who use their speech, um, reveal in due time. Let them be revealed. Um, that their breath, they use speech, they use language to ensnare people, and they lead into chaos. There's that, and they ensnare, devour, and offend, and cast down these fallen ones by their own devices. Now, uh, I think my device does not want to. Okay, there we go. Found it. Okay, so he says to with their devices, and that word devices is where we get all these counsels that they do, and that is nafal. It's actually the root for naphalim, these fallen ones. If you'll These all the way back, these insidious watchers, these nephilim, these fallen ones who follow their own counsel. They're people who use. And it says that their throat opens into a chasm, and their tongue devours calamity and ruin. And these are rebels. These people have rebelled, and that word is mara, which is bitter. Uh, so mar is the word for bitter. Mara is people who are contentious, rebellious. They plunder, they divide. This actually, if you notice, with language they plunder. That's where we get the word marauder. In times past, these cities that were along the coast of Israel, there were these cities, and these people, these marauders, would come from the sea, and so that mem meant chaos from the water. And so it was a bitter thing to them that they would come and they would take everything that they had, these marauders, they would plunder, they would take everything, and then they would drag it away. And so it was very bitter to these Hebrews that these marauders would come back and take everything that they had. And he says, cast down these nafal by their own devices, these fallen ones, and ensnare them with their own counsel. And next we have again, we have him pleading, and he said, let all rejoice and be glad that flee for protection. And that's Shema. Again, we have the the devouring chaos, but there's a wall of protection. We have that wall of protection for those who put their chasa, which again, the het and samek means refuge, and with the hay at the end, it's a revelation of your refuge, or behold your refuge. And so he says, let all rejoice and be glad that flee for protection, that seek refuge in Elohayim. He says, you will lead them into the ancient house, and you will establish them fixed, immobile, immovable for this time, and further than you can one can see or perceive, to the edge of the horizon and beyond. And he says, give a ringing cry, exult in praise. It's it's this joyful sound. And he said, because he's defended them, they have triumphed in his love. They have triumphed in his love and in his name. And he said, you bestow gifts of righteousness, a rich inheritance upon those who guard your Torah. And he said, you will bless them. You will be a shield around them. Now, this is the first time that I ran into the dragon hide. That was it was it was it has actually this idea that it has barbs on it. The shield has got these hooks or barbs on it, and it guards with its prickliness, but apparently it had this piercing cold. I can only assume that the dragon, uh, maybe some kind of ice dragon. I don't know. And so it guards with prickliness and with piercing cold. And again, he says, you are this protector. You're the protector. You surround these people. He's surrounding, he's protecting them because they wait on him. And so in that one, we have the tet, which is a surround, it's a symbol of a basket. It looks like a cross with a circle around it. And he says, you surround, like with a crown, all those who wait on you. So these who wait on you are going to be crowned. You protect them, you surround them. And with us, we end number 5.
Thank you, Pamela. Now, I have a quick question. You had put in there the line insidious watchers, and then, of course, right under that, you put seraphim and cherubim. And so are you finding a reference to the watchers in there?
That comes from the word Nephal. Now you have Nephilim, but I mean, that's the distinction that they mean in some of the modern, but what that means is someone who has fallen from their first estate. And so are these are the ones, whether it was seraphim or cherubim, you can see that there's a list of them. Cherubim, seraphim, and watchers who have, these are ones who have fallen from their original estate. I think that Enoch and Jude, um, I think it's Jude that says that they're kept in that these who have fallen from their first estate. And
Yes, it's
e-
Jude.
sir,
Yes, it's Jude.
yes, Jude, where he almost copies and pastes Enoch, where he says that they've left their first estate, and that's what that word means. All of these who left their first account of these watchers, these seraphim, the cherubim, they've left their first calling. They've left what they were assigned to do.
All right, thank
And
you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, thank you. You called me sir. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. I don't know when the last time somebody called me sir before. So, and I didn't mean to interrupt. My apologies. So now this is up to you. How much further you would like to go? Would you like to go through Psalm 6? Would you like to turn it over to a discussion at this point? What would you like to do, Pamela?
Well, if you want to discuss it, because I think we've been, what, 2 hours? We're
We're
over 2 hours.
we're 2 hours in.
Oh wow. Uh, I'm telling you, I think I talk too much. But if you want to open it up for discussion, that would be, if anyone has questions or comments.
Well, you guys heard Miss Pamela. So, and from what you have so far presented and taken us through, I really appreciate Pamela, and I just really want to remind. Well, I don't need to remind everyone. I mean, I think that this is really exciting and cutting edge stuff, and just to be able to see these word pictures and see so much of as Rebecca, I'm not Pamela put earlier that there's the many possibilities of what it could be saying in here. And so, handing it over to you guys, what are your thoughts? Did anyone have any observations? Does anyone have any questions?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, great. This is Gordon. How you doing today? Noel, right? Noel?
That's Noel. I'm doing good. Thank you, Gordon.
I'm glad.
What's on your mind?
Well, a couple things. I really like the translation. Pamela did a wonderful job. I really enjoyed the reading. Very deep studies. I definitely appreciate all that was put into it. So that's number one. Another thought I had was, when I was studying this stuff, about, I don't know, quite a while ago, about 7 years ago, the pronunciation, you pronounce Yahuwah, right? Yahuwah, you have a pronunciation there. And as a YHWH, I was always, and I had this question for Pamela, I was under the impression it would be easy to pronounce. If we're going to call on God's name, it should be something that should be easy. So I understood it to be Yahweh. Just we added in these other letters, and it gives denotation of other, attributes to his name, obviously. But in reality, he gave us 4 letters, and the easiest way to pronounce that I know of would be Yahweh, right? So, anyways, that's it. But I definitely appreciate everything you guys are doing. God bless everyone.
Well, it's interesting what you pointed out. Can't remember what writing it was that said that the name of the Most High was 4 vowels, and those 4 vowels are the Yah, the Ha, the Wah, and the Ha. And so I'm just letting the letters speak for themselves when I say
Yeah.
Yaha, Waha. And if I were to say one, I mean, I'm just going by the paleo. The next, if I didn't go by that one, I think it's Yahuwah would be a second choice. I think though what I try to emphasize when I'm talking to people about the pronunciation, I mean these are the letters. Um, in the modern, they say yod hey vav hey. These are the letters, and they're all vowels. All four of those symbols are vowels. And more important than the pronunciation is to know, to the ancient Hebrews, it was his name and his character. Do you know his character? That's the main thing. The word itself means Yah, he will, Kuaha, he will breathe. That is what it means. Um, it could also be one that's closely associated with that is Yahaya, Yahayaha, which is he will exist. And you see that form in Exodus 3, but he uses the word, of course, the Aleph, which means I will. And so you have uh, Ahayaha, and a lot of people, they say that name, but the only one who could actually genuinely say that is, of course, the Most High Himself, because with the Aleph in front, that means I will. So I would, if I were talking about Him, I would say I have to say Yah Hayaha. So it's because He will, because I'm talking about Him. I'm not talking about myself. So like I said, um, the Cherokees, they pronounce the the pronunciation that you were using, Gordon, wasn't it? Is he
Yes,
still
it's
there?
Gordon. Thank you. Yes, it's Gordon. I'm actually Cherokee,
Yes.
but by blood.
Are you?
Amen.
I am too. I am too.
Oh yeah.
I'm 1/8 Cherokee, and so the
Well, I was
the
on
the
the
Cher
16th. I'm left.
I'm 1/8, and I could probably, if I wanted the government in my business, I could probably be certified, but I'm not doing that. They have no
Right.
business in my business. And so,
State affairs.
but if you'll notice, a lot the Paleo sounds a lot like Cherokee, and a lot like Native American words, like aloha is actually the singular of Alahayam, and like words like Iowa, again, that it has its roots in Hebrew. And so, the more I discover it, the more I find that it does sound a lot like Cherokee. It does sound a lot like Native American languages, and so
Oh,
that's just
the language of gentleness, isn't it? Not in the book of Jasper. I think they mentioned it. He called it the language of gentleness.
and I can see that because I know in in English, I'm a musician, and I had to take diction for singers, and I had to learn the different vowel sounds and the different consonant sounds for all these different languages. And English was the most troublesome because English has 22 vowel combinations, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy, but uh, the Hebrew language has five. It has
Wow.
5 vowel sounds,
Very
and
simple.
so it's and is that I think that's Deborah, yeah. She said she's also high. She's also Cherokee. Yes, and that word in the middle there, Deborah, Ashar, that's happy. They usually translate it uh, which or because, but that's a happy too. Yes, and it does. The olive always means father or strength. It's if you were to say it's the ox head, and it represents power and strength. There's the horns, and I think that it's no. Uh, they say that the olive is silent. I think they're trying to silence father. Is what I think they're trying to do. That's just my own personal opinion. Oh yeah, he put up some is that Cherokee, James? Yes, it is. I was learning Cherokee. You can actually learn Cherokee too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually. I haven't had time to do any of those things, but I definitely would like to because I really love language. English is
Yes.
my first language, but I kind of have. He's given me an ability to understand words and where they come from just by thinking about it. So
Yeah.
universe, one speech, one verse, one word, one song. So that's kind of how I've really got my knowledge is just by dividing the words. So it's similar to what you do. And I even went into Paleo Hebrew for just a little bit. Really, I was fasting like 7 days and did it. And it's like, I got a lot of this stuff together. Like, wow, this is overwhelming. It's just a lot.
It does.
But
There's been a few It'd been a few times that I had to get up and just walk away because it was just, as you say, some of it was just like overwhelming. I'm like, you know,
my great
no.
great grandfather is Chief John Ross of the Cherokee tribe. So,
Oh, really? Okay.
yep, I descended. I'm actually, he's like great great uncle. My great great grandmother was his sister. So, pretty
That's
interesting.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Greg.
Irish and Cherokee. Yep. Amen.
Oh.
But anyways, thank you for answering my question. I'm sure other people have other things to talk about, so I'll let other people come in. Thank you so much.
If I
God
can
bless you.
interject, Gordon, I
Yeah,
also say
good.
Yahweh. There's an interesting story about Dr. Stephen Pidgeon. When he was putting the S affair together, he actually delayed the release for almost 2 years. He wanted to be sure of pronunciations, and he was at the Wailing Wall on a visit to Jerusalem, and he heard someone singing the name Yahweh in a song, and he interviewed the woman, and she was direct, full-blooded Navajo princess, and she said the song goes back to antiquities, before the Messiah, and
Great.
that's where he settled on the name. Also, as you were saying, Pamela, and thanks, that was awesome, and I hope we continue and go throughout all the Psalms. The word Ahwa, that's an ancient native name for water, which is spirit, which is the spirit is Yahweh, Ahwa. But every tribe and every nation, from Canada to the Incas, have some sound or word that are similar in all the languages that they sing of, whether it's Cherokee or the Utes or the Mayans or the Hopi. They all have a name and a sound for Yahweh.
Amen. Thank you for adding that, Joel. Another thing that came to my mind because you were, this is another thing that at the same time I kind of came to an idea of the word ale, alea, ale. Ale represents in English, and Old English and Old Greek is oil in Aramaic, and its original Old English is, I believe, Aramaic, anyways. But alea, the God of my strength, the God of riches and fatness and wonderful things. Without oil, we would turn into dust. So thank God for oil.
Sounds like a lot of us are finding out that we're all from the same tribe, the Cherokee tonight. I guess it's a big family reunion. And
Wow.
I can't say this, 100%, but I was raised being told and showing photos that my third great grandfather married a Cherokee woman. And it was basically the story. It was like the movie Dances with Wolves was a ripoff of my family heritage because he fought in the American Civil War. We have his letters and everything. And he got injured leg, spared his leg, didn't cut it off. He went out west, married a Cherokee woman, although I think it was Sue in that movie. And I'm trying to look through the records now. It's like a Mandela effect. It's been like totally scrubbed, erased. Like apparently, I am no longer related to any Native American group. So it's a great mystery. And anyways, it looks like a lot of people in here are all chiming in that they're related to the Cherokee in some way. Does anybody else have any other thoughts or questions on this?
I do. Thank you, Pamela. That was really good and inspiring. I don't know if you're familiar with Eric Bissel's work. I've sat under a couple of his teachings of Paleo Hebrew. I was just wondering, curious of how you did your studies, because I know with the Paleo Hebrew, like there's I know the way he does it, like there's like you have, because I know there's like 7 layers to the Paleo Hebrew, and if you have like say Aleph, for example, that it, because it obviously means something different than in the modern Hebrew. So if you have Aleph where it means first, leader, strength, and are how do you translate it? So do you do like one word and then you look at each individual letter and then transcribe each and then kind of make your sentences from that word, or like how do you go about transcribing each word?
Well, it's a lengthy process. First, as you say, I write it out in the Paleo. I mean, I have Eric Bissell's, Eric Tallgy. His is a little bit different from the Westminster Leningrad Codex, which is what I usually use, and I transcribe it out by hand in the Paleo, and then I write down the meaning of each of those letters, and then I start trying to find that root, the root for the word, and because if you can find that one 2-letter parent root, then you have the underlying meaning. Say for instance, the name for father, Ab. You have the Aleph and the Bayet, Bat, and it means strength in the house. Well, say for instance, the word for love, you drop the hey or the ha in there, and it becomes the word ahab. So it means that's what's recognized as being the word love. But what it's literally meaning is behold the Father. And so you see these layers, as you say, layers of meaning. So it's, you know, what it said in Proverbs, you know, you're wrestling with every word, and sometimes it does get frustrating and intense. I was joking with some of my friends that I've had a hard I'm into book 2 now, and I've had trouble with the sons of Korah because I don't understand them as much as I can understand the works of David. I get David, but sometimes I get frustrated with some of the things that are being. I'm just like, what is being said here? And so every word sometimes is a struggle to find that underlying meaning, what's really being said, not just what anybody can get a lexicon and just get some kind of lexicon or the Strong's Concordance, which, by the way, Strong's Concordance has got a lot of mistakes in it. So it's not that you can't, just come up with that and then just come up with the what you would think of as the traditional definition. Sometimes it's the same. It's just saying it in a more picturesque way. And sometimes I'm like, that's not it at all. That's not what's being said here. That's not it at all. So it's you're dividing each word, rightly dividing the word. You're doing that because the Hebrew is they stack words on top of words, and they stack words on meaning on top of meaning, and so you're wrestling with every word, and it's a lengthy process. I could probably just spend even more time than what I have, because the language is so deep. I
Yeah.
hope that
So good. So Erictology is different process and you use then. So you're going taking everything back to the root word. Do you use that etymology dictionary in your studies? Is that
My
where you take
favorite,
things?
if I have a if I use a lexicon, uh, if I if I give any kind of recommendation, it would be Gesenius's Hebrew Chaldean lexicon. Uh, I I try to use the Paleo. Most of the time, I use the Paleo, but Gesenius is, and I'm lucky enough that I found one from 1979 because the digital one online is different. They've changed it, and considering he's been dead a while, that's remarkable that he edited his stuff from the grave. Um, so my advice is if you can find a Gesenius, uh, an older one, um, that would be the best if you want to have. And I've used Jeff Brenner. If you've heard of him, he's been one of the people that I have followed. I've followed a lot of different teachers, and I've learned a lot. Um,
Oh, awesome. Yeah, and I know I've read his book. Really good. Well, thank you. You've done amazing work. I really appreciate sitting through this. It was great. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything you wanted to add?
Hello, it's Gordon again. I don't mean to take up too much time. Hey, you were talking about the Aleph, and I watched the Mazzaroth, and there's an Aleph, the Taurus, the Boaz up there. Just interesting. I've been watching it for a while, but I noticed that Mars moved from between the two horns into the ear, and it stayed there for like 2 weeks, maybe a month, maybe 3 weeks, and it's just now moved up, and Mars is sitting on the horn of Taurus right now, right?
Yeah, I
Not
was noticing that myself, and I was actually like, wow, when I saw what I don't know who posted the Mazzaroth in our Mazzaroth channel, but I was like, that was kind of disconcerting to me to see Mars moving up into the horn.
right.
Um,
Well, and it's war against the Aleph or the leadership, right? And
yes,
that's
I mean,
sound of war in
that's
the ears, right? And so everybody hears war here. All they can hear is war. And the next thing you know, it's moving into the horns. It's either anointing, empowering them for war. You know, it's God's Mazzaroth. It's not Satan, that's for sure.
well,
But it's definitely a sign.
it's been a war against the off, uh, the head, the first. Uh, so it's they're trying to silence the Most High. They're trying to make war against him. There's it's like in um, Psalm 2. They're taking a position against the Most High.
And they're going against his anointed ones. And there are many
Absolutely,
anointed, many of them on this channel, obviously. And that's the other
absolutely.
thing is, a few things come to mind is when righteous people give way to evil, it muddies the waters. So we want to make sure that we're not doing that in our own life and the people we represent. The people we represent. We want to speak the truth and make sure it's God. Anyways, thank you again, Karen. Pamela, right?
Yes, Pamela.
And it was my wife Ronnie who posted that on the Mazros. She has a little app on her phone, so we check it together.
Okay, okay. Well, I enjoyed seeing that the Mazzaroth stuff where it
Amen.
was.
We'll share a little more of it as
Yeah.
we find. Amen. Thank you again.
Right, guys. Well, I'm going to be closing shop here real soon. Any last takers? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
I just had one more question. Pamela, have you ever, like, I know you're doing the Psalms. Have you ever gone into some of the other books? Because I know that I've seen some of the other teachings that they've transcribed Paleo Hebrew, like Daniel 12 and that, and it literally doesn't even say, like, when you read it from Paleo Hebrew, it's like a whole different story. I was just curious if you've done anything other than the Psalms.
Uh, yes, I've done some from Genesis that I've shared with Noel, and that was really shocking to me when I saw what was really going on in Genesis 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5. That was shocking. The Ruach has kind of been moving me to work in some of the uh, the 12, what they call the minor prophets, but they have this major message. And there's one I've been working in Malachi, and I think that part of it is included in the Psalm, um, the book, the Psalms from the Paleo. In the very back is a little bit of that, and it was unbelievable when I was working from chapter 1 of Malachi. What's really going on? It's just sometimes when you look at the Paleo and you see what is actually going on, it's a little bit shocking because, as you say, it's so different than what is being represented uh, in the most translations.
Well, Pamela, I do really appreciate. I know so many in here, everyone in here does appreciate this presentation you gave and taking us through your translations. Of course, we only got through 5. In the first volume, there's maybe, I'm looking at the table of contents now. There's maybe 50 psalms in here. It goes through Psalm 41, and then we jump into the Songs of Ascending, and then there's a couple others from Scripture. And just so everybody knows, this is a very ambitious project on Pamela's part. I should have put this into the introduction. And for those of you who subscribe to the TUC Book Club, this is one of those things that helps support Pamela. And so she can get on the second volume, the third. How many volumes do you suspect there's going to be? I think maybe 4.
I think there's 6 books in the Psalms. Some of them are short. Um, I've thought about, do I do that, or do I combine a couple? But it's divided into 6 books, and which means there's still 5 yet to go of the Psalms, and I think I'm like halfway through book 2, and I've shared some of it with you. It just seems like it's like shock after shock after shock. Those sons of Korah that I've wrestled with, they had some interesting things to say, and very messianic scenes ahead of us. So there's lots yet to do.
As Michael says, Psalm 119 will be one book. And and as Polly says, there are 5 books in Psalms, making canon 70, which is actually a pretty good point. So it's kind of interesting because, yeah, Psalms, if it is 5 books and we merge it into one, it's technically 5 different books. So okay, well, I think that's going to be it officially tonight. And as I was saying, this helps encourage both financially and in other ways for Pamela to be able to finish these translations. It's going to be a long process for her. I don't know how long it's going to take, a couple more years. And hopefully we can get that second edition out before summer's over. I don't know how long.
I'm hoping so.
Yeah. All right. And so we're going to be closing tonight's Shabbat Shalom one last time. Pamela, is there anything that you want to just say for closure?
Just I thank you all. I thank you for your patience. And like I said, I'm not perfect, and there's no perfect translation. We are we're wrestling with this because uh, I feel like it was a judgment from the Most High that we lost the language. That it was part of the judgment against us for idolatry and for turning away from Torah. And as people are turning back to Torah, he's opening up the books. And so I feel like there's going to be much more revealed in this generation. I feel like there's even more startling things to come. And so, hang on to your seat, folks. There's more to come.
Okay. Well, like I said, Shabbat Shalom one last time, guys. That's it. And let the after party begin. And Pamela, you're free to go if you'd like, or stick around.
Well,
And
there's one question. Beloved asked, "What was the most surprising thing you found while doing this?" Wow, I would say uh, Messiah. He's everywhere, and some of it they've uh, they've deliberately, I guess you say, obfuscated. They've deliberately, it's like redacted. Um, Messiah is everywhere. Sun and air. That word, bar, the sun and air, bar, kiss the sun. The sun, attach yourself to the air apparent. It's that seeing Messiah everywhere. And see how much he was in the Old Testament, because it's just like ta-da. A lot of people think ta-da, he shows up in the New Testament. He was everywhere. He was everywhere. And
that's something that Pamela and I have been talking a lot about. I think, Pamela, it was like maybe a year ago now. She gave a presentation on here about Yahusha in the Old Testament. And it's something that we've commented on a lot, because one of the things we see every few years within the Torah movement, there's these big breakoffs where people, these anti-Messiah movements, and the spirit kind of comes through and flushes the toilets, and a lot of people go. And there was a big one, of course, a couple of years ago that hit the community hard. And I had a lot of people telling me, almost like heartbroken, that they searched through the Old Testament and he's not there. It's just he was made up in the New Testament, the son of Elohim. And that's obviously, as Pamela, you would say that is not the case, that he's everywhere. And we see these in these translations.
yes, he's everywhere. I mean, first verse, Genesis 1:1. He's there. So sorry.
And I covered that a couple months ago in the Paleo Hebrew and the Genesis Reset, and that came, of course, from Pamela's translation as well. And she's right; he's boom right there. The sun, the air, right there. Like it's the opening. It's the opening conflict that happens, that the air is being announced, and this darkness rises up out of the abyss in protest, trying to topple the air. And then you see the Ruach HaKodesh violently moving forward to suppress and hold back this darkness. Is so epic, but he's there from the very beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely. First, it's like you say, his story. It's like it's telling his story from the beginning to the end. And the Most High, the Father, it's yes, it's Father too, but it's like the earth was given into the hands of the Son, and he's been very active in the lives of the people, and it's just a shame that most people don't even know it.
I have a quick question
Yeah,
for
isn't he in verse 2 also, where he said, and they said, let there be light. Jesus said,
Yeah.
I am the light of
Yes.
the world. So right
Yes,
there, I mean,
that word for uh, he said, that's translated he said, or sometimes they say commanded. It means he brought forth. He brought forth. That's an
amen.
interesting term. He brought forth light, and that light, like I said, is not. It's not like it's got the aleph or alf in it, and it is a strong light. It's a powerful light, a light from every direction. And it's not saying that it was created in this moment. That's not a creation word. It's a bringing forth word. I don't know when, you know. I'm just saying that in that moment he's brought forth. You know,
Well,
not.
Jesus, you see what Hamashiach said, no man has seen the Father at any time but the Son. And so the only person that was in the garden and walking with Abraham and, negotiating with him and has ever visited mankind in the flesh or a visible form would be Yahushua Hamashiach, the light of the world. That's what I get.
Well, I don't. You know, I just. You know, I've wrestled with this. His father. Um, I mean, how much did he work, or could we have endured it? Because it says that he's a consuming fire. Could Earth have survived had he touched down? You know, um,
Very good.
uh, I don't know. I don't know that we could have survived it. 'Cause as you say, um, no man can be in his presence. He said that, you know, when he was talking to Moses, he said he was talking about the malach uh, that would go before the children of Israel. He said, "My name is in him, and don't be vexing him or putting him to the test, because he he will destroy you in a minute." Um, so I don't know. I don't. This is some of the stuff I wrestle with. What could have we has his father ever been on Earth? I don't know.
Pamela, does the Aleph Toph appear in the Paleo? I
Yes,
know
it does. It means literally, the Aleph Tav means a powerful sign or a powerful covenant. Um, it is what is in it. I can't remember how it goes in Revelation. It says that I am the Alpha and Omega. That's in the Hebrew Revelation. That's not what it's going to say. I mean, John is writing. He's not going to say that. I would have to go back and look at that and see exactly what it's saying. But he is saying that I'm the beginning and the end. Some people say that that's the divine marker, but it literally means in the Paleo, it means powerful sign. And it happens before, it's like, look, something important is happening after this. So in the terms of Genesis 1 and 1, he says Al Hayam, bara bara Al Hayam uh s Hashemayim Las Ares. So he's like, this is important. This is a sign. This is a powerful sign. The heavens are a powerful sign, and Aratz, which we say earth, both of these are powerful signs. And there's something important going on here. So, yes, it happens lots. And again, it's one of those words where they say it says in these some of these lexicons, and in the Strong's Concordance, it says not available. This is not um, translatable into English, which yeah, it is. So
I have another quick question. Are you familiar with the Targums? And
Yes, I am.
the question is, they're like my favorites, and I can't get enough. But to answer Gordon and some other questions in the background, I think Justin James Garcia, Zen's son, did a book on uh, the Memra of Yah and how it appears in the Pentateuch 11 times, but in the Targums it appears 217 times. So, as you were saying, there is a vast conspiracy to do away with the names, and I think that's one of them. And I like that. You know, it's one of my favorite things about the Targums is they keep the word of Yah in there.
Well, what I like about the Targums is I've often thought that, if you really, the Targums, they have so much more detail. I think that if we go back and we translate from the Paleo, we're going to end up with something a little bit more like the Targum. There's going to be lots more detail because they've tried to do this one thought for one thought translation, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because there's so much going on. And so I think that if we, that is to say the Hebrews, today's Hebrews, if we translate the Torah, we're going to find something a little bit more like the Targums than than what we have, so to speak.
That's actually what you just stated is I didn't even really thought about it like that. And like a word for word, right? So a modern Hebrew is a word for word, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you could say would you say the Aramaic is a word for word too?
Um.
Kind of.
Aram,
I'm not
I,
talking about
I,
the Targum, just the Aramaic.
uh, Targum, the Aramaic would be. It uses the same. It started out with the same font as Paleo,
Okay.
and it too moved into uh, what we call the square script, the Babylonian square script, or the Chaldean letters, which is what the modern uses. The difference between the two is the fact that they have different meanings. The Aramaic, it looks like the same word, but they've ascribed a different meaning to a word than what the modern Israeli Hebrew does.
The
And
reason I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
I'm not as familiar with the Aramaic. Say, for instance, you've got the word for father in Hebrew, in the Paleo is Ab, and in Aramaic is Abba. So you have this, did it spring from a different pronunciation? Did it spring from, they went this way and the Hebrews went that way? I don't know.
Well, the reason I said that is because obviously, if you put the Hebrew or the Hebrew Masoretic, let's just say that because the English is also a Targum, so the English Targum is a Targum of a Targum, and the English Old Testament is a Targum of a Targum because the Hebrew is even a Targum of the Paleo. But if you put the Aramaic Targum and the King James Torah side by side, the Targum is going to be longer, right? Because it has more words in it. And I like the way you described it as that the Paleo Hebrew would be very different. I mean, very similar to that. Kind of like going through your Psalms because you're looking at pictures and you're trying to pull out the meaning. And that's one of the accusations against the Targum, that it's that's more there that maybe shouldn't be there. But I didn't really think about it quite like in that way as you described it. So I do appreciate that.
Well, I feel like that there's more detail that we're missing, and so there should be more information. I'm not saying that he's going to give us everything, but I think that there's more information in the in the manuscripts than what we recognize or realize. And I mean, we've all experienced it where uh, we've read a passage, read a passage, read a passage, and just suddenly, boom, we have um, we find a new meaning in it. Is that I don't know.
I didn't want to begin talking about this on the recording tonight, but of course, Pamela and I were discussing this earlier today. That there's a lot of people are, maybe the best word to use is offense. A lot of people are getting offended at the Paleo Hebrew. They're getting defensive, maybe angry, making accusations about it. And really, at the end of the day, I think that's a lot of, there's only two prime emotions, love and fear. And a lot of people are afraid, they feel insecure because the Paleo Hebrew, maybe they have a lot of pride in their translation, whatever, but the Paleo Hebrew is bringing more depth of discovery into these texts, and I could see why people are. There's going to be a lot of guys. There's going to be a lot of hit pieces against the Paleo Hebrew, and it's probably already begun. Um, hopefully Michael doesn't mind me mentioning this. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But he talked about how he gave a presentation and he like threw one paleo thing out there in his presentation, and it was the one thing that was heavily attacked by maybe his local congregation or something like that. And so there's something about this study that it really does pry at people's insecurities, and maybe topples or threatens to topple their high places. So just want to throw that out there, that's kind of what we're dealing with this.
One of the things that Pamela and I had touched on this once before in another conversation is that with the pictorial language of that particular Paleo Hebrew, if we were to put that into complete pictures, okay, picture a picture, okay, for every single one of those, and we put that into books, that what we'd end up with, instead of a Bible, we'd have a whole entire set of encyclopedias. And I mean, to be able to understand the true pictograph language and to see it for what it really meant, that would just be totally mind-boggling. And I doubt if anyone will ever be able to do that, but I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know. Um, how people are getting to where they speak emoji. They speak emoji now. They speak to one another with these little avatar looking things. And people they seem to be moving toward more pictures. And we can I have students, I'm a school teacher, and I have students who I've had students who could not even write their own name, and they're spelling, and sometimes I'll tell them, I say, well, if you can answer with a picture, do it. And so pictures, um, they can tell a story, whereas you might struggle with a word, but the picture, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And we have 22 pictures in the paleo, and the way that they're combined, they tell a story. Ob, strength in the house. It's actually the tent pole. It's also a word for the tent pole. And the tent pole, it's not just, it supports the tent, but also if, say, for instance, the family was attacked, they would grab that tent pole and defend the family with it. So it's support and defense. So it's telling you a story, just with two symbols, and you get this wonderful picture of what Father does and who Father is. He's the support and defense of the family.
When you're talking about the pictures, that was the one thing that when I was listening to Eric Bissell's teaching, he had shared a story about that very thing when you're talking about the pictures. And his brother, who's a pastor, he shares a story and says that he was going over to Africa and he was trying to get to show him the pictures in Paleo. And he says, all you literally have to do is show them the pictures, and it tells you the whole story of Yahusha's death and resurrection in Paleo, and you can very easily do it with Paleo just by pictures, and they can literally get it. So I just thought it was interesting that you were saying that about the pictures, and that's kind of what brought back to my memory of that.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, just like I think Noel said, and maybe Gordon, or maybe it was Dean. Not sorry, I can't remember who was, but like every word could be a sentence. It could. Some of them are. It could almost be a paragraph, but then every sentence is it could be volumes and volumes, like those old world book encyclopedias. If you really even get a close approximation of what's really happening in the text, it takes a lot of English words to 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 be the same as, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like you don't even have to speak the same language to somebody. That's what I think is amazing. Just like you said, like your student could write their name, and then like if somebody doesn't even have to speak the language, and everybody can identify with a picture of something. That's what I think is so brilliant about it.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of the understanding has to do with education. Um, these pictorial languages and things seem to be much quicker and easily understood by native people, or even people here in the Philippines. I mean, they're only a few hundred years out of the jungle. I'm not being mean when I say that. I'm just stating the facts. And even when it comes to flat Earth, the name of the Father, all the things that I've been trying to explain to my wife and others, that are near me here, they get it real quick. I mean, no problem at all. But when I try to speak to Americans that have been educated into the system, it's like beating your head against a rock. I mean, there's just no way. I've seen the planets. I've seen that they're all around. I'm like, really? No, you haven't. You've seen a circle. You have. Did you go behind it? You actually seen that it was a round ball, and it's like beating your head against a rock. But education has a lot to do. I think the more simplistic that the educational system is, it easier for those people to get it.
Interestingly enough, the word education comes from the root word to educe, or to learn to think. So education in itself just means to teach someone how to think. Our definition of giving people information and calling that education is just rebranding indoctrination. I was having this conversation with a brother earlier on today, and it was really similar to what you were just sharing, John, about how people from other countries readily accept the gospel, and they readily accept deeper truths so much more than people in Western society would. Like in Africa, both Nigeria and Ghana, I was able to share huge things with them, and they just got it like that. And they'd ask questions, and their critical thinking skills would ignite, and they would just be super passionate about this idea, passionate about an idea that they're not, completely on board with, but able to talk about it and not just shut you down with their indoctrination.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. If the educational system in any country, it doesn't matter which one it is, if it is a government instituted educational system, it's an indoctrination camp. That's all they are. They're just massive indoctrination camps all over the world, and they are run by the one world system. You know, whatever you want to call it. To me, it's the beast. It's the beast system, and their indoctrination camps, plain and simple.
Well, I'm a teacher, and I see it. I um, colleges, schools. I see it. The indoctrination, and some of it is very subtle. It's very subtle. Um, and I've just I've reached this point in my life. I'm asking myself, how can two walk together unless they agree? And I don't agree with it. And so it's like, where does that leave me? Unemployed, unemployed in Florida, because I don't agree with what's going on. I don't agree with how children are indoctrinated. I don't agree with you know that people are teachers, are becoming the local parentis. It's the teachers who are giving the children their moral compass. It's the teachers who are, and that's just not that's not the way that y'all meant it to be. A child's first teachers are their parents, and they should always be their parent. And and to see these agendas, uh, where these little ones are spouting this this stuff back at me, regurgitating this stuff back at me, and we're supposed to be silent, and not speak out truth, and I can't be silent, and so uh, that's where I'm at.
I've seen so many videos lately. You know how they have algorithms, especially on Facebook. If you watch a video, next thing you know, you got a dozen more just like it. And I have seen so many parent teachers conferences, and also where they have these conferences in front of the educational boards, where parents, I mean, all over the United States are bringing up this problem of teachers teaching this garbage about you can be anything you want. Be a dog, be whatever. There's no gender. The genders is that all that teaching is wrong. You can be whatever you want to be, and it's just amazing. And thank God that so many parents are actually standing up to this garbage. But it's getting sad.
The question I would ask is what is the benefit or the outcome from them standing up? Ultimately, like what change is occurring? Because it's a system that's in place that, maybe the board removes the teacher, but that doesn't change the root cause, which is the education system or indoctrination system in itself. The parents will ultimately, if they really want to change, will begin schooling their children via a different method and take them out of the system.
I agree with it. That was James. That was you, James.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Would you say that the time for well-meaning teachers in the system grows more and more short? I mean, how can you stand for right? How can you stand for proper teaching in that space, man?
Well, I will just tell you something that you might not be hearing in the news. I will tell you what I'm seeing, and it's a mass exodus. It is a mass exodus from the schools. People do not realize in the state of Alabama, over 60% of the teachers that are teaching are not certified teachers. They are emergency teachers. In the state of Florida, mass exodus. You've got classrooms that have over the limit of what should be being taught. Crowded classrooms. Why? Because you can't find subs. You don't have enough teachers. They're having to pull. They're pulling teachers from everywhere. One school that I know of pulled the art teacher, put her in a classroom because he didn't have anyone, couldn't find anyone. People don't realize that this is occurring. That the outcome of one of the things they did with the COVID, teachers are done. They put more and more on teachers. In the state of Florida this year, we all had to be certified as how they make us certify CPR. Now you have to have emergency training in mental health. I'm not a mental health worker. Why are you putting that on me? In fact, it should be illegal. It should be illegal, for this kind of stuff going on. We're not. This is all wrong. This is all wrong. They say, "Oh, you need to know the signs." It's just more and more that they're piling on teachers, making them do. Sometimes teachers just feel like glorified babysitters. And I know one teacher, got a parent got furious because the teacher didn't tie her child's shoe, and the parent said, "That's your job. Teaching a child how to tie their shoes, that's your job." And sometimes that is the idea of parents. That's your job. Teaching them how to be a good person, that's your job. Teaching them have manners, that's your job. And that's not the way it should be. That is not what it should be. And you've got, it's just a mass exodus out of the school system. And people don't realize this is happening. And it's happening not just in the state of Florida, it's happening in the state of Alabama, all over. Teachers are leaving. They're leaving. Teachers who have been there a long time. I'm retiring. I'm gone. So.
I can clearly remember when all of this started. I mean, seriously, because I just happened to have elementary children that were in school, and this was back in the 80s. When the educational system, according to the government rules that they put out to them, told the teachers to teach the children that their parents were no longer able to discipline them. That right there, back in the 80s, was the beginning of the downfall, in my opinion, of the whole entire world, when they said that parents were not able to discipline their children. That's when the government took over the rights, and that's when everything went to pot. From there, it was a downhill slide, 1,000 miles an hour.